Welcome. Today we're joined by Brandon Riedel, a businessman whose life changed in an instant after being crushed by a falling tree. What followed wasn't just survival, but a powerful rebuild rooted in mindset, faith, and perspective. Welcome to the show, Brandon.
Hello, thank you guys for having me.
It's going to be a pleasure. I'll tell you what, let me ask you, Brandon. Most people go their whole life without facing a moment that truly tests who they are, and you had that moment in an absolute instant. Before we get into anything, when you think back to that day, if you can please describe some of that, what do you remember about who you were before everything changed?
Who I was before?
Yep.
Well, just, a hardworking family man. I raised 10 children. I was in the middle of a divorce when this happened, and I had a son that passed away just 3 months before the accident. So, my world I was having a real difficult time already, And anyways, it all happened really fast. I went to, actually, I just got a new place and moved in March 1st of 2024. And I ran down to the bank. I was going to, deposit my check. And of course, there's this big job site right next to the bank, and they're running all these machines. And I see this beautiful tree sitting up in the front left-hand corner. So I waved the guy down on the dozer, and he comes up. I said, "Hey, what are y'all doing with this tree?" He goes, "Oh, we got an excavator coming. We're gonna smash it up, put it in a dumpster. You want it?" I said, "Yes, I build with these things." He goes, "Well, I'll load you. Can you be here with the trailer?" I said, "I'll be back in 20 minutes. So I go run to a buddy's house and grab a 40-foot trailer. And I show up there and I strap it down. They load it, of course, and I'm strapping it down with chains. And the foreman pulls up on the job site, and he's like, "Hey, man, who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm a builder in the area, but we take and mill these trees, or sometimes, and we do all kinds of things with them. And I just hate to see a good tree, go to waste, go to the dump, So he goes, "Hey, we got some real big trees on some other job sites. Would you be interested?" I said, "Absolutely." And so I think that was a Saturday. He says, "I'm going to get with you on Monday." And so Monday, I've got this plan to go out to this big job site, actually out where I grew up, in Smithson Valley. It's a big spall glass job out there. And, he asked me to wait kind of towards the end of the day so I didn't interrupt what they had going on. And at last minute, the buddy I had going with me canceled, so I went alone. And I don't think I had been there 10 minutes, and it happened. So it's unbelievable.
When you say
Describe
it happened,
that.
yeah.
Well, I pulled into this job site, and there was quite a bit of activity, and I drove kind of past where how the foreman typically has an office in the front of the property. And so as I got in with this long trailer, I kind of noticed it back to my right-hand side, so I kind of turned around and I pulled right up to it. And the guy came out, and I told him who I was, and he said, "Well, the trees are right over here." And so he's like, "Get after it," or whatever. So I just went over there. And all the trees were, I think there was 4 or 5 of them, but they were on the ground. And they had torn them out with an excavator. So these things had huge root balls on them. And of course, I went to the best tree first, naturally. in case you run out of time, or you know what I'm saying. I don't know how many trips it was going to take, maybe a couple, but I wanted to get the best one first, right? That's what made sense to me. So, I had one of the great big chainsaws, and, sometimes we will haul them with the roots on them, but a couple things happen. One, they drop dirt on the highway, which you can get a ticket, but two, a lot of times gravel will fall out and bounce and maybe break a windshield or something. So in the past, we'd always kind of learn to have a vehicle follow you. And that way, you didn't, if there was any damage, it happened to one of your vehicles, right? So anyhow, I go to cut this root ball off this tree because it's not a good enough tree where you would leave the roots attached. It's like some trophy trees, we'll haul them that way because you can put it underneath the tree house and then leave all the roots attached, and it makes a really cool column piece or something. But these weren't extravagant enough, and they weren't worth the risk and the weight as well, because they're very heavy. So that, I walk up to the first one and I go to cut these roots off, and I grab my big saw out and fire it off, and I start cutting through the base of the tree, right? These roots are, I don't know, the way I remember it, maybe 7 or 8 foot tall. And anyways, I get almost through the cut, and naturally it starts to bind, right? And I was on the safe side, the way the land was. There was a slight, kind of drop off on this other side, right? And so I went to the other side, and I went to undercut and finish about a 3-inch cut on the base of that tree. Now there was a young guy there, I would say in his early 20s, and he had a big 10,000-pound loader, and he was waiting to load that tree. But I didn't really know this guy, and so typically I would have had him put the bucket on the root to secure it, But I didn't really want him up close to me. I figured I was better off not knowing his skill set, or he's a younger guy. I thought, I'm fast, and typically that root will stand there, or it might fall back, or you know what I'm saying. So anyways, I go to finish this cut, and as soon as I do, it does. That big root ball goes to roll away, but it circled and then came back on me and just boom, crushed me. I mean, so fast that there was no way you could jump out of the way. I can't even believe it can move that fast. And so I'm underneath this thing, huge root ball. And this kid runs up and he grabs it like he's going to, that thing weighed, I don't know, a few thousand pounds, surely, maybe more. And so he's just like panicking, And I see the foreman run out of the office building, run down the stairs, and I see him call 911. And so I knew that had been done, and this kid's like, what do I do? What do I do? And I was like, get that machine and roll this thing off of me. But be very, very careful, because there's no teeth on your bucket, and you'll drop it back down on me if you don't have a good hold on it. It's a smooth bucket. So he gets on this loader, and he comes up real nice and gentle on my left side, and he takes his time, he gets up underneath it, and he did a perfect job. He rolls it, and that thing just, away from me. And so I looked down, and that's the first time I could see the damage that had happened. And it was like, it was unbelievable. I've never really seen any, certainly not on my own body. I don't think I've ever even broke a bone. But I looked down, and my leg was broken around where the shin was, and basically made a 90-degree turn. It just, you'd have to see it to believe that. And then I looked down at my arm, and the wrist was broken and 2 fingers were completely gone. I guess they're just crushed, gone, or, And so I'm bleeding out my arm, and I had a bandana around my neck, which we always wear in construction for a lot of different reasons. It's basically like a tool that we use to keep ourselves cool or shade ourselves. But I took it off immediately, and I went around my arm and I tied it with my mouth and wrapped around, and then made a tourniquet with the bandana. And I basically was just sitting there holding it. And I held it for 25 minutes until the ambulance got there. And it took, and I didn't realize it'd take them quite that long. Canyon Lake was the closest EMS. And here they came, and I think it's either 4 or 5 guys. I think it might have been 5. Maybe, I don't know, I'm not positive. But they get out, and they came over to me. And, I was awake the whole time. Like, I was cognizant. And so the first thing they did was they brought these great big, like industrial scissors, and they cut my boot off on that dangling leg. And then they said, this is going to really hurt, but we're going to pick you up and put you on this, I guess, a stretcher or whatever. And they took and basically carried me and set me on like a kind of like a bed, like a rolling type of bed in the back of the ambulance. And the pain of them moving me was, I can't even describe it. It was just, and so they're driving out of this job site, and every bump, we're hitting, and I'm just sitting there like, that was I think the most painful part, probably, just driving out of the job site in that type of condition, hitting all the bumps. And he said, I'm going to get you something. And then the next thing you know, I blacked out. Like, I don't know I'm pretty sure he used morphine. And anyways, we had just pulled on the highway. I don't think we'd been a couple hundred yards, and I'm out. And I don't know where we went, but they took me, obviously, to a helicopter, because I came to, and I'm over San Antonio in a military helicopter. It didn't have doors on it, so I could look down and see all the So they were airlifing me, right? But I don't know where we went out there to land this helicopter. But anyways, they're like, stay with me, and we'll have you there in 6 minutes. And so they took me to BAMC, in San Antonio.
Let me ask you, Brandon, what was there that specific moment in your life where you're laying there, maybe in the hospital, where everything just, it hit you that my life is never going back to the way it was? Or what did that feel like for you mentally?
Well, I think it started with being there laying on the ground. It's a really interesting experience because I had no fear. I mean, I was not scared. I wasn't worried. And I was just speaking to the Lord. I mean, I was like, is this really my story, And I felt his presence. Absolutely. And so anyways, yeah, there were moments, when I got to BAMC, they cut my hand off first, which was probably best, because with missing 2 fingers, that would have been kind of weird looking, And so, but so they basically rolled me into this big room with, there was many surgeons in there and bright lights and all this. And, it all happened pretty fast. I mean, for me, I made a joke out of it because I really didn't know. I didn't really know like what you. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, you know. You're in this situation, so I look at the surgeons. This is really what happened. So I look at the surgeons, and I introduce myself, and I'm sitting there, my arm freaking broken, and I was like, I'm really sorry you guys have to meet me this way. And I said, hey, do you know what a gay horse eats? And they looked at me like, what in the world? I was like, hey.
Yeah.
And those surgeons said, who is this guy? But I found that humor throughout the process was a way for me to cope with what was going on. And it started there, and people ask me, they're like, well, how long did it take you to learn how to write left-handed? Because I was right-handed. And I said, man, it's fake it till you make it, man. And basically, they say, you want a blood transfusion? Sign here. So, I mean, I just scratched out a John Henry the best I could, and that's what it was. And then I just kept practicing every day. But, it's losing my whole right side. Driving's different. I have to drive with my left foot, and you have to learn how to walk again. You have to learn how to write left-handed. And so I had plenty to do, these things to work on, and they don't. So back to the story, they cut my hand off, and they put me in a room, and then I was underneath so much anesthesia that I couldn't even see people. I mean, I could hear their voices, but 4 feet away they were blurry. I don't know if that's because it's the first time. But I ended up having 13 surgeries in all and 47 days in the hospital. But only the first time was it where they it was crazy. Like I could hear my family there, but I couldn't see any of them. And I knew their voices. But anyway, so they come in and they're like, listen, I'm under so much anesthesia, I don't even know my hand's cut off. I mean, I can still feel the nerves. I feel like maybe I still have my fingers, but I don't even really know. And so when I finally, after it kind of wears off and whatnot, they approached me and they said, look, your leg, we don't believe that we're the right people to deal with that. And I'm like, seriously? Like, that's a military hospital, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, they're like, we want to take you down to university and have them do it. We think that they're better for this situation. So they moved me in an ambulance, and I went down there, and that was kind of an exciting process, wheeling in and seeing all the people and whatever, right? I mean, the whole thing's an adventure. I mean, you don't really know what's next, and so they start doing surgeries on my leg. I mean, they put rods and bolts. I think I had 3 surgeries on my right leg. They had it straightened out. They had blood flow, like they'd put a deal on the end, and they were like, but I couldn't move my toes. And then, I'm laying there. They got like a brace on it as well. And I'm laying, and I'm swelling so much that my foot is covered in blisters. I guess I don't know what brought the blisters on, but I guess just it swelling that much. So I was just sitting there, and I just kept trying to move my toes, and I just never could, And so I think I'm at about surgery 5. And then one night, all the machines start going off. Beep, 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 beep. And all these nurses run in. And they said, we got to cut off your leg right now. All your organs are failing. Like, you're going to die if we don't cut your leg off. And I said, let's go, And so that's what happens, man. They take me back there. they cut my leg off above the knee. And that was pretty crazy, man. To wake up to that and just be all bandaged up and no leg, and quite an experience.
I got a quick question for you. Can we back up for a moment? Did you say, how many kids do you have?
I have 10.
10 kids.
Yes.
And did you remember any of their names during that time? No, I'm kidding. I'm messing with you, but that is unbelievable. I mean, being so under anesthesia, I can't imagine what you were experiencing at that point. But were they all in the same hospital room with you?
Not all of them. You know
That's
how
all.
it is. I
That's
can't
all.
even get them all together for something that's good. But
Dang, that's a lot of children.
yeah, it's a yours, mine, and ours situation. When
Got
I
it.
married, we each had 4, and
Throwing 2 more in there, and
it was
you gotta.
a blast, man, raising all those kids and experiencing all the things that we got to do. You know.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
You know, I gotta go. I'm listening to this all the time, and your attitude is amazing. I mean, from
Yeah.
the jokes to let's go for the next adventure. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
who thinks like that? Most people would go to very dark places. And what was the first conscious or unconscious decision you made to set the tone for how you were going to respond to this and deal with this?
Well, for me, I just remembered reading a scripture, one that always stuck with me, and I can't recall, but it's in Psalms, like 119 or. But anyways, it talks about how God has a special plan for your life, right? Like your steps are ordered, and that's really what gave me the confidence. I mean, I just know that my life's been amazing up to this point. And I could not have designed it any better, really. So I know he's got some bigger plan, and I can't wait to see what it is. And really, that's, I remember the doctors coming in and being like, this is one of the most stoic situations we've ever experienced, you know? And, you know, I'm just a country boy, like from Spring Branch. I had to look up what that meant, you know? But anyways, I mean, yeah, I mean, you just keep learning. You know, they put me in physical therapy like immediately. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I'm like, you know, I'm a pretty aggressive person. I mean, that's so what caused me to get into this situation is what also allowed me to get out of this situation, because I just have the fortitude and the resilience and the strength. And so they start on this physical therapy stuff, and I can't believe they have me doing this stuff with what just took place, you know. And I keep blowing out these bandages, like, because I just get in there and I'm doing like these pretty serious movements, and that, I mean, I would just saturate in blood, you know. I think I did it 3 different times, and then finally they're like, okay, we're going to have to slow down a little bit with you. And I just kept following their directions. I mean, they know what's going on better than I do. But, you know, that was cool. Like all the different people in physical therapy, and they all have different stories, and they're all just doing what they can, you know. To me, the most fun thing about all of it were the people. Because the nurses, the doctors, they're all real serious. I mean, telling jokes, or, you know, you can have a lot of fun with those people. And there's some of those people I'll never forget, you know, ever. I mean, they saved my life.
You know, but before this accident, you weren't just a builder. What did you build, and what did you do?
Well, my father was a prominent home builder here in the Hill Country, and I worked with him for 19 years and built about 300 custom homes, high-end custom homes with him. And, the '08 crash came, and there wasn't any work here. And for the first time in my life, I couldn't pay child support. And I ended up getting married for the second time in 2010, April of 2010. And I'm married into the Schlitterbahn family here in New Braunfels, which is the #1 water park in the world for the last 25 years. And so I start, I don't know, they had just built the big water park up in Kansas City, and they were flying all these carpenters down to start this massive project here in New Braunfels. And naturally, my wife was like, you need to talk to my dad, maybe you can. So originally, I just went to work there as a carpenter. I was just willing to do anything. But I moved up the ropes very quickly, and within, I would say 4 or 5 months, I was in charge of a big portion of the project, all the tree houses, and I had like 13 contractors there, and I had, I think we had 86 guys from the company that were, and I wasn't in charge of all those guys, but I had I don't know, maybe 20 of them, or I had to keep timesheets on and keep them directed, and along with the contractors and stuff. And it was a blast. So yeah, we built those. That is actually, they bring in this tree specialist guy, this from California. He's this 350-pound Norwegian guy named Clarence. And this guy's, he's so cool, man. He's got long hair, and he's got all the chainsaws and everything. And yeah, I had always cut trees and made things. I mean, but this was a whole nother level, man. Like these kind of monstrous trees and whatnot. And I just totally thought it was like, living a dream, And so this guy starts teaching me things, and we're using beautiful trees to build this project. And it kind of just went on and on. I mean, we ended up flying in a plane one time when there was a flood, and flying all the, the waterways, and finding all the trees, and we'd drop a pin in the airplane. And then when we'd get down on ground, we'd drive to the ranch and then try to, and then we'd go haul all these trees back to our sawmills. And I mean, it was my cup of tea, man. Like, we were having a blast, like when the Bastrop fire happened, that guy knew this huge guy that was going in there to clean up the whole situation, right? He got the government job, and we ended up making a deal with him if we could keep the trucks coming. I mean, he would have to mulch the trees up and then get rid of the mulch or whatever. And we hauled 10,000 loblolly pine trees out of that. And then we milled all 10,000. Well, I mean, we milled them. We were building a huge sawmill out here on Lake Dunlap. And I think we were like $650,000 into it, and they shut the project down. I mean, we had too many projects going on, and I mean, usually you find a source of trees, and then you go build a sawmill where the trees are. You don't build a sawmill and haul the trees to you. You know what I mean? So that the whole thing was a huge learning experience, but yeah, I mean, it's just like anything else you do, whether you're hunting arrowheads or, finding the best tree, or, these trees that are hundreds of years old, and being able, like the cypress, you can't cut them down. They're protected. So the only way you can get them is from a natural disaster. And so during the floods, man, I remember one that we got that was 490 years old, and we used it down on the hotel we were building in Corpus Christi at the entrance. This thing was, I don't know, maybe like, it's about 5 foot at the base, I would say, something like that.
You talking about the floods that were in like Houston or
We had one right here, and I'm trying to think what year that was.
because there was that big flood a couple years ago.
No, this one was like around, I want to say, I'd have to look at my pictures because they have the dates on them, but it seems like it was around 17. I've done so many projects and so many trees, it kind of starts to run together. But where we found them all was at a ranch in San Marcos, and it was the people that own the McCoy's Lumber here in town. And so anyways, we're out there, and we were out there for 4 months hauling trees out of there. They give them to you free if you'll clean up the area, you know, and there were trees everywhere. And also there were people, I can't remember how many people were missing and killed, you know. So while we're out there, there's these big search parties, and you could smell a smell that's one you don't want to smell. And I think a lot of it was cattle, like in these big piles of debris. You don't know, are they people, are they animals? Or so these search parties are out scouring the land. I remember seeing groups of like, you know, 8 or 10. They're just searching for bodies. You know, it's quite an interesting thing. I have never seen anything like that.
You know, it's really interesting. I mean, this theme of trees is woven in your life, both good, prosperous, bad, changing your life. I mean, you have this if you want to go religious, you have this cross made out of wood that has been part of your life, the whole existence. And I want to know, you went from this physical identity of searching and working trees to now you have a different identity. How did you, in a world of construction, how did you match this new identity?
That is something you have to work at. One night I was laying in the hospital bed, and I see this childhood neighbor on Facebook, and he's connected to a blood vacuum just like me, and he's laying in a hospital in Nashville. Okay, and I hadn't talked to him in 31 years. Now he had got in a car accident right out of high school. I think he was just about to start Baylor, and ended up having, his whole foot was mangled, you know, and they tried to keep it, and they did all kinds of surgeries and different things, and eventually he cut his leg off, you know, but he's below the knee. So anyhow, he had an infection and returns to a hospital some 24 or 25 years after his initial accident. But I'm laying there, and I see him. And like, we both have this same blood vacuum hooked to us. And I don't remember who reached out first, but the next thing you know, we're talking on the telephone through Facebook, like an audio call. And so immediately, like I say, we hadn't talked in 31 years. He just starts, you know, making me familiar with the process, what to expect, you know, and what he did. And just to have a friend to talk to, especially one that you hadn't, I mean, the last time I had seen him, I might have been like, I think I was maybe 17, and here I am laying in a bed at 49, something like that. Maybe 48. It's hard to. Anyway, it is a long time. So, yeah. So that, to answer your question, it is a whole new identity, and you have to start learning. And I had, once I got out, you know, I just remember returning to my place and, I'm just like, it's unbelievable. Like I'm sitting there, I have no prosthetics, I can't drive. I'm just like looking out a window, and kind of staring at my guitar, like, man, why didn't I play more? You're kind of processing all this stuff, and I had like a tremendous amount of social anxiety, and really, it really wasn't because of people being rude or staring. That's not really what it was. It's just because you're not comfortable with yourself or your new identity. So, that accident happened March 5th of 2024. I end up with an infection and back in the hospital 6 weeks after I'd been out. And that's when it was supposed to be an in and out type thing. They said 2 hours, and, they basically said, you have an infection, and if we don't open it up, you'll always ooze, and it'll mess up your prosthetic. There's a guy that just left. He never would go through with it because he didn't want to open it, and he's still having issues years later. Like, we have to go in there, right? So I'm in there on a Thursday, and he wants to see me the next day to reopen my leg. And I was like waiting to be measured for my prosthetic. I was like, seriously, we got to do this again? So I show up the next day, and I wake up, and I'm in the ICU with a tube down my throat. And it was not an in and out, man. They got in there and found that it was in the bone. And so they basically tell me, we got to cut off another 4.5 inches of your leg. And I'm like, will I ever walk again? Because I'm already pretty short here, And it was, like I say, it's on a Friday. And they're like, well, we can't answer that question. I didn't know about osteointegration or any of those things at that time. I've learned, that's where they drill a hole and put a piece of metal in your hip, and then I didn't know, there's different ways you can do it. But what I did laying there over the weekend is I called my brother-in-law, and that he builds prosthetics here in San Antonio, or he did at the time. I think he's changed jobs, right? So he was a consultant for me, but unfortunately, the people that he worked for wouldn't allow him to work on family. So, but anyways, I call up my sister, and I've got her on a FaceTime, and I tell her what just happened. And I saw when she kind of conveyed the message to him, I saw the look on his face, and he didn't even have to talk. Man, I was like, oh my gosh, because I would just want to know if I was going to walk again. That was really my question. And he was like, well, it's not impossible, but you have to wear a waist sling, and he starts kind of going through all these things. And anyway, so I lay there all weekend like, golly. So so going for the next surgery, another complication, my heart did something, back in the ICU, and they come and they say, look, man, what they ended up doing is they decided, instead of cutting more of the leg off, they were going to drill up the bone 4 inches and fill it full of antibiotics. So they attempted to do that, but something with my heart. And then on the third time, they got it. But I think the drill in the bone hurt more than cutting the leg off. I mean, I guess nerves or what. I couldn't even move in the hospital bed. I mean, it's unbelievable pain. So, anyways, there's a lot to be grateful for. Just feeling good.
I'm listening to this, and most people will say stay positive and all this, which is a mindset change. But in reality, it's a lot of work, right? And I think people just think it's just, oh, just be positive. How did you what can you describe you're kind of describe it, but some of this work and when you would get this bad news and this bump and you'd be slammed down. I know your faith is pulling you back up, but what's some of the work you did to keep picking yourself back up? Because Dr. Spencer and I hear all the time, my back hurts, my ankle hurts, my wrist hurts, and I just can't go on. And here you are having stuff that's more than any of us can comprehend, and you just kept going on. What kind of work did you put in that somebody can grasp onto?
Well, when I worked at Schlitterbahn, that was an amazing experience to be inside of an empire and see how they operate. Learn their things that they, like trade secrets, basically. Their mottos, their rules to move. And one of the things that I learned, and I think I already knew it, but not to this extent, was basically using what you have to move forward. And so, we do these huge projects, and we never had enough money. And they were, my father-in-law was an amazing artist, and he would use a lot of reclaimed materials and things. And so a lot of these things we would get free, but you have to go do the work to get the stuff, right? And so I would say that's what I did. I was in a wheelchair, and it was kind of hard because typically you use two arms, but I only had one. So I just started going out on the sidewalk, and I would just use one arm and then put my foot on the ground and pull at the same time. And really, how you have expansion joints in the sidewalk? And they would have like small ramps, where they have drainage areas or whatever. And so the first day, it was just my goal to try to make it like 40 yards and just be seen in public, and I got up to that ramp and I was kind of nervous, and it was only about a 4 or 5 inch drop and then 4 or 5 inches up back to it. But I just kind of looked at it and I thought, man, what if I get stuck? There's no one out here. Do I hop and try to pull this? You're just thinking all this through, And so I just basically turned around and I made it home, and that was my first outing. And then what I've learned in life is, if you mentally conquer something, then the physical part just happens naturally, right? That's the big thing. So I just thought about that ramp all night. I went to sleep and everything. And then the next day, my goal was to cross that, which to most people would be just a silly little, it's just 5 foot down and 5 foot up. But when you're all alone and you don't know what you can do. So I did it. And I went down like I was going to just try to do anything further, but I felt pretty, I kind of gained some momentum. So I went like another 40 yards. And then I turned around and made it home, and every day I just tried to improve. And that's where it starts, working with what you have and then continue to build.
Have you always been that way, even before the accident?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Someone who pushes themselves just a little bit more every day, depending on what your challenge is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Did you play sports in high school or college? Or
I tried everything once to experience it, but I raised show steers, and I love that so much that I did it all for. You can't really do both, right?
Yeah.
And so I did it all 4 years in high school and would travel and do all these. Man, it was a blast, And then I had a final finale like my senior year. I placed second in Houston. I got in the top 10 in Texas. and I won a jacket, and I won I remember winning a buckle. I mean, it was like a perfect ending to all of that. All I ever wanted was a buckle, and I got it my
Things in
senior
life.
year. It was so cool.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was just talking about show steers to someone just last week because one of the Miami Dolphin guys years ago, he was so excited to come in and tell us that he got this, $10,000 or $20,000 straw. And I go, a straw? What's it? What do you mean a straw? You know where I'm going with this? I'm sure you do.
I'm pretty sure I do.
Yeah, he was artificially inseminating one of, or
Oh, whoa.
so the straw was loaded with semen from a prize-winning steer. And so I thought, where? So show steers. The moment you said that, I go, oh, I know where this is. I know what that's all about. But, let me ask you though, the element of competition, the perspective of how you are internally, is it something that what I was trying to get at, was it something you've always been, you know, self-motivated? Did you learn that connection between the physical and the emotional? Or was that something that you always had all your
Well, I came from a family there was 5 of us kids. I was the oldest, and I really didn't do too good in school. I didn't have the best self-esteem, and that's it. I basically took me my whole life to like gain the confidence that I had, because I finally, I have 10 children. I have a couple really good businesses. We have land, all these things, and I felt really accomplished, and it's just amazing. You have an accident like that. For one, all your priorities change, and I had all of those things taken from me, through the divorce process, So, what a change in identity. I mean, not just physically, but everything that you're known for, I mean, going from having, we had all those kids in a house and they always had 4 or 5 friends over almost at all times, So I go from living on all this land and horses and cattle and chickens and, we have all of our employees coming from our business. In the summertime, we would have 70 plus employees. So they would be coming by to get, for a long time, had the office in our house until we could afford to buy or rent a office area and storage and all that. But I mean, it was like a zoo over there all the time. So, the next thing you know, I'm like a bachelor living by myself without an arm and a leg. So I mean, it's pretty different. I hadn't lived in an apartment since 1995 when
But
we chased
Brandon,
the dream.
though, I gotta highlight this one thing about you that I've realized. You could take away all the fun stuff, the kid, you could take away the wife, the kids, the house, the money, the farm, and all that. But there's something they can't take away, and that's your mindset. Your mindset is something that is obviously rock solid through all of this, and you've got this attitude. Did you listen? We're on a podcast. People are listening, wanting to listen in on this. Tell us the truth about how are you really that positive? Is that somewhat, is it, because of faith? What's
It's
driving you?
faith. It's faith.
Has
It's
it
faith.
always been that way?
No. I mean, I was a believer, but I wasn't living for the Lord, In 2006, my first divorce, I spun off the handle. I mean, I was drinking and drugging and finally burned my house down, okay, on a Thanksgiving evening. And, my kids are out in the front yard watching the house burn. And that's when I had my real wake-up call. these guys show up, all these fire trucks, and they've got chainsaws cutting holes in the roof and sticking these hoses, and all this craziness. And my kids are there crying, and I realized, I think God, he just kind of it just kept getting worse and worse, And that was the final straw. I gave my life to the Lord. I started living for him. And I got in a Bible study, and, I was a meth addict. And I was able to defeat that addiction. And I have actually today, that was in '06, I've been clean 20 years. So that's and ironically, I ended up at a house on Thanksgiving this year, after the bar closed, right? And then they start chopping lines, right? And I've had people ask me one-on-one, but not ever with 10 people in the room, So it's kind of ironic that it would happen at the exact same day that I had my, fire. But anyways, that was the first time that I said, guys, I can't participate. And, recovered drug addict, and I appreciate it, and thank you for having me here, but that's not something I can do. And so that was a big deal for me. I went and told my grandma about it. Kind of weird, but but it is what it is.
You had to tell someone, but you went from rock bottom and you experienced it all, and you resurrected yourself and found faith that allowed you to hold up that shield and be positive enough to walk away from what tested you. The people on that Thanksgiving day they were testing. I mean, theoretically, they were testing your ability to say no. So that is very admirable. How do you feel knowing that did that add more strength to your ability to move forward?
I mean, it's a milestone, but as an addict, there's things that are socially acceptable and things that are not, okay? But the truth is, an addict is fighting energy drinks, cigarettes, alcohol, all these things are socially acceptable, right? They're all just different levels. And so, I don't know that I've ever had a drinking problem. I mean, I think I did after my first divorce. But, after my accident, I quit drinking for 2 years because I was really nervous I might spin out of control again, especially with these things going on. And then for whatever reason, 4th of July, I picked it up again. All the kids had just drowned. And I had just stayed home for so long and been so introverted. I just wanted to just do something, get out of the house, because I unplugged, and I don't know how healthy that is. I think for me, I had to kind of process all these new changes in my life. And, you're just trying to think like, what do I do next? I heard this guy, I was sitting in a sauna one day. I never really heard this before, but he was like, success, you got to pay rent every day. You got to get up and make it happen. And I was like, wow, I'd never heard that before. And so, really it is one day at a time, and you can work with what you have, and then it just starts growing. And that's what happened with me.
Hey, Brandon, just for the viewers and listeners, you made a comment. I'm not sure how accurate, or you were being facetious. You said the kids drowned. Is that what I heard you say?
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, I thought you said something about the kids.
I'm not recalling. I mean, the kids watched my house burn. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
to see your kids
Oh,
that
okay.
emotional
Oh, I got you. All right, good.
and seeing that, you know, I didn't
just
mention this part. This is maybe just another joke in the middle of all of it, but I had one of those great big firework things you buy in the attic, right? So as this fire's going on, and I had ammunition up there too. So as this fire's going on, the next thing you know, pew, pew, you know, bottle rocket. I mean, anyways, I just thought I'd add that, but that actually happened. It's
that could
kind
have
of,
been a good distraction.
yeah.
Go ahead,
Hey,
Terry. Before I do the rapid fire, you want to ask?
oh, so yeah, I got to ask something. You've gone from, I had no idea, you went from a drug addict. Then, I mean, like Dr. Spencer said, you've been tested. How is your life? And every time somebody was trying to slam you down, first it was like, your drugs, then you lost your family, you got divorced, then the tree falls on you, you lose half your right side of your body. I mean, and then you keep getting picked up. But every time your life changed. So when you got divorced, your life changed. You went from a house to an apartment. Then something else, your life changed. I mean, and you almost seem to find something good on the other side. Where's your life now after going through all of this and losing your right side of your body? What does life look like now for Brandon? So somebody that may be on the other side of the curtain that hasn't walked through yet can have something to grab onto. What does your life look like after going through this?
Well, for me, the probably other than faith, like the number one thing for me has been the gym, and I go 6 days a week, and you know, I wasn't even able to do that when I had so much social anxiety. You know, my leg would fall off at times, or like if I'd get on a bike. I mean, you don't. It's just to deal with that in public and everyone staring. Like it was kind of hard. So I started just going here to the apartment gym as a small little gym, and a lot of times even no one's in there, and really just to try to figure out how to get on the machine. And then you have to learn how to operate it. And so I just kind of started slow, and then one day I was like, okay, I'm ready for the big time. I'm gonna go to the big gym. and I tell you what, man, it took me about 2 or 3 days. I kept saying, well, I'll do it tomorrow. I was really nervous. And so I finally make my way to Gold's Gym. And man, my heart was beating fast, and all these, good looking females and people, and I'm just basically trying not to be seen, but you can't blend in when you look like me. But anyways, I just started a day at a time, and after maybe like, I don't know, about a year, I started. People don't just talk to you right away there. I mean, some do, but a lot of the serious people, they're serious. They're there to get a job done. And you start learning this gym etiquette and how things work, and it's like a whole thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm still learning, but this one guy I met that was real friendly, going through a divorce as well, he kind of told me that he had a goal of meeting a person a day. And I was like, man, that's really cool. So I started doing that. And it kind of, the easiest place was the sauna, of course, because, everyone's just sitting there. And so a lot of conversations are going on, but it is a little bit more difficult on the floor. You don't want to be rude or interrupt or whatever. But I started doing that. And then the next thing you know, man, I knew hundreds of people. And then one of the things on their advertisement, there's a guy missing his right leg and his right arm, and he does like this jump up on this thing with his leg in the air and all this stuff. And he's like a real badass. And he had a shaved head like I do, and people started coming up, "Are you the guy?" And I never claimed it, but I should have. The dude is a total stud. But anyways, that a lot of people started coming up and asking, and I don't know, that place there, just mentally, and what a wonderful place, man. I mean, that is a huge key for me to keep going. So to answer your question, I'm in there, and I'm in there from 2 to 4 hours a day, and
Let
and
that be let that be a testimonial for most of our patients that are couch potatoes that can't get started. So I'm glad you brought that up because no one has an excuse that's good enough, and especially someone in your situation that found some emotional relief in a place like a gym. Dr. Terry, do we have time for rapid fire?
Yeah, give him a couple of them.
All right. All right. This is nearing the end of the show that we ask you a bunch of questions that you have to give a very short answer to regarding our rapid fire questions. And we have a few of them for you. And if you're ready, I'm going to fire off number one. You ready? All right, Brandon. Question number one. How has your relationship with trees have changed over the years?
It hasn't. I'm glad it's part of my story.
Good
Because I
deal.
could have been in an accident or something, but instead I was doing what I love to do. So I think I wouldn't have it any other way.
Good answer. Question number two. What's one trait that you had before the accident that ended up saving you after the accident?
I would have to say strength,
Emotional strength.
all of it. I mean, it's without that, I don't know. There's not a whole lot of in between with this stuff. Guys either crash or they skyrocket. I haven't, and that's what I've heard through the grapevine. It's
Absolutely
just
right.
not much in the middle.
Brandon, who's been your anchor through all of this? And was it something that they did that meant, more than they probably realize?
That's a lot of people come to mind. I don't want to say one and discredit others, but how they say it takes a village to raise a child.
How about
And,
grandma?
well, that's the person that came to mind, my Meemaw, right? I don't know how you knew that. I mean, my grandfather as well, but he's in a home with dementia, right? So every time I see him, hey, what happened to your leg? So, so, anyways, they're equally, you hit the nail on the head.
Question number 4, Brandon. What was the hardest part of competing in your first triathlon that we haven't even talked about? But give us a little moment of what that hard part was, the physical or the mental or what?
For me, it was speaking in front of people. That's always been the greatest fear of my life. So they put me on this stage riding a bike in front of hundreds of people, and that was the scariest part to me, not the doing the stuff. I mean, that.
The audience doesn't know that Dr. Terry asked a question of you before the show started, and that was, did you ever compete in a triathlon before the accident? And your answer was? So I think it's fascinating that you took a challenge that you've never tried before and you went through. Bravo to you. I got one more question for you. You ready? You lost your right hand and your right leg, but what's something you gained that you would never trade back even if you could?
I think it's the depth of the relationship with God, because really, without that, man, none of this is possible. So it just took it to a whole nother level, because I can remember my daughter asking the ladies, the nurses or whatever, is my dad going to live? And they, at one time, they basically said, we don't even know how he's still alive. And so just having that relationship, man, that's it for me.
Bravo to you, man. You're a rock star. I appreciate this whole interview. Thank you so much, Brandon. Really, really good stuff.